Give me an idea of how long time to value to train the models, because that's one of the things I always think about too. Is in like again, I'm putting my old CIO hat because I would hear pitch and I'd be like, oh, how long does it take and how long does it maintain? Give us an idea of, like, because I know model training has gotten exponentially better. It took a lot longer for Google Photos to figure out what a dog looks like than what probably you guys are doing now. But give us an idea of how much user input, how much company input is there to train that model so it can start delivering, like you said, a lot of value to their customer experience, whatever it is they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, to make this like as easy as possible for enterprises to get going, we have a suite of software that we call NVIDIA AI Enterprise. And within NVIDIA AI Enterprise, we deliver some foundational tools, one called Tau, which helps you basically train and adapt a model to your own environment. And we offer pre-trained models. So you can basically take
Mm.
our pre-trained models, you can take your own, in-store data sets and you can, retrain the model and get really fast, you said time to value, right, of applying models in production that way. And then, I think people are doing a lot of POCs through model tuning in that fashion to prove the business value and then, maybe make the investment in kind of building their own specialized AI teams. But, ultimately these projects, let's say if you're doing loss prevention in a store as an example, the cost savings will pay for itself, pay for the infrastructure in under a month. And so the rest of it
Wow.
is just taking money to the bottom line.
1 month time to value is pretty substantial. So I mean, that's pretty darn good. When you think about, the use cases, that's one of them, the being able to recognize loss prevention. And it's not your fault. It's no one's fault, but like AI in general, that term has been used so much, as has edge, that people can't quite like when you say AI, they're like, I don't quite know what you're saying. I know it's someone thinking for me. Edge just means, hey, processing faster, closer to me versus data center. Give us an idea of some of the other use cases that you guys have already seen, because that's a big thing. If you're telling me that within 1 month of me installing this equipment on my retail footprint, that I've already stopped more theft than the cost of the machine, this is brilliant. I would install it everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Give us some other examples, because this
And,
is where it gets really cool.
and I think that's why we're seeing kind of this accelerated growth. And we think it's going to be, at least a 10-year journey, right? For people to take a lot of the AI innovation that's happened in the cloud and bring it out to the physical infrastructure where people actually, interact with most of their customers in retail and manufacturing and the like. And so some other examples. So we call them, frameworks, like application frameworks to help people get started with, we call it Vision AI, which can be applied in all these use cases that we've primarily been talking about at the edge. We have frameworks for doing conversational AI. So if you want to have virtual assistants in stores, and those virtual assistants can blend, vision and voice. So a perfect example is, I don't know about you, but on the weekends I end up doing a bunch of homework, like work on my house, and I might tear something apart, and I walk into a hardware store with a part, and I've got to find a human and say, hey, what is this thing? Where do I find it in the store? Well,
Yeah.
AI can look at that and it can tell you, that's on aisle 12. So we're starting to see type virtual assistants that can blend voice and vision, to help direct consumers into new locations. And that application framework that is kind of the foundation of that, we call Riva, is the application framework for that. We have other application frameworks for cybersecurity. It's called Morpheus. It can look at the packets on the network, or it can look at, say, login events of people within your enterprise, and then basically build behavioral profiles of those people and the applications that they might be interacting with across your enterprise, and be able to tell you when the behavior changes, which could indicate compromised credentials. So the security
Oh.
side of enterprises, there's just not enough security people in the world, and the cybersecurity threats to enterprises keeps growing exponentially. And so the more that we can move to this zero trust architecture, where we are kind of like watching through AI what all the people are doing on the network, you can quickly kind of flag and see when bad actors arise. So that's another framework. We've got frameworks for recommendation engines. And when we talk about these frameworks, like some of them, I mean, they can run at the edge, they can run in the core, but I think these are just kind of common use cases of AI that we're seeing across enterprises. And so more and more where we're spending our time is really creating these, I'll call it, blueprints that basically are these reference applications of AI that any enterprise can take, they can apply to their infrastructure to start seeing some of this business value.
You hit something in just a moment ago that I want to explore some more, which is that you mentioned this, like if we're very early in possibly a 10-year journey for adoption. I'm curious, when you meet the new customers or new businesses that are going down this venture, or maybe they already use Edge AI, what types of problems, I guess, are they bringing to you and saying like, hey, could this solve this problem? I'm sure that's like all kinds of different problems. I'd love to hear like what your perspective is like, do you think people are thinking, what are they thinking about? Is it typically in security loss prevention? And I'll add a tag on question, which is like, has any of these ideas like stumped you? Like, I don't know how I would solve that.
Well, the reality is, I mean, another one, just to go back to like other use cases, another one is like fraud prevention in like, financial services, and trying to look at all the credit card transactions and find the outliers, right? Like what is the fraud and how do you address it? But, what we're seeing more is I think every business now understands, okay, AI is this, transformational force that can really help me drive business efficiency. But, what they come to us with is, how do I get started? To be honest, it's how do I get started? And the recommendation is always like, let's identify really kind of a short-term, high-value, business problem, and then let's build a POC around that and basically help you, realize a quick success. And then these projects, it's like they can touch many different aspects of the business. If you take like customer service, customer support, it can touch kind of core like transaction processing. It can touch the store footprint. It can touch, many different aspects. So I think, our general advice is let's choose one, let's choose a high value one, and then let's like share with them the blueprints of success that we see across their industry, so that they're not out, trying to pioneer something that's like completely novel research on their own, but they can kind of apply the best practices and kind of get those quick short-term wins.
That's a great way to frame where we are in this journey. Is I asked like, are they throwing out groundbreaking innovations, which I'm sure some people are asking crazy requests, and then you're saying the bulk of people just like, hey, I just want to get started because I know this is going to be a transformational thing. I need a little help and guidance how to get this implemented. We also talked earlier about it, the levels of security. How do you envision, or how do you and your team think about securing this product? Because it is so powerful. It is, if you're telling me it's actively in real time helping me make business decisions, actions, whether it's in security or loss prevention. Like if I was a security guard, I'd have to actively go possibly stop somebody. Like obviously it can't have false positives. There has to be accurate. And if it's connected to the network, which it is, it's also can be hacked. And so like it's got to be protected, because otherwise who knows what could happen. How are you guys approaching security to keep this information, and the information that the business data, the customer data, personal privacy data, all of it's got to be secured somehow? Give us that idea how you're approaching security.
It's a full stack problem, from silicon to firmware to operating system, to applications, and then, system level, right? We're looking at it holistically. And I think, we're going to continue to drive innovation kind of through that full stack. The hardware level, recently we've introduced new hardware capabilities. We launched our Hopper architecture, and our Hopper architecture is going to support what we call confidential computing. So it effectively encrypts the link between the GPU and the CPU, so that the AI model is encrypted in transit, it's encrypted at rest, and it's encrypted in use now, which is super important, so that even if people have physical access to the system, they can't, steal that intellectual property, or like you said, kind of tamper with the AI to drive, to fake out basically the computer, or to fake out the people that are getting the alert.
Yeah.
And so you've got to protect that AI model. It becomes super critical intellectual property for the companies. I mean, when we're working with these companies, effectively you end up spending, over many years, like millions of dollars to codify data into these AI models. And so the AI model itself becomes your critical intellectual property that you really have to protect when you deploy out there at the edge. It starts at hardware, but we're working through the ecosystem. So other things that we've been doing is we've open sourced our kernel mode driver for GPUs. And we've done that so that we can work with OS companies to sign the driver to make sure that it is our driver, it is kind of protecting their data, and basically that driver is exposing all the right APIs even up to the application level. So basically we have to kind of replumb the whole stack to make sure that it's secure, right? I mean, this is the investment that everybody's making is in AI. We gotta help them protect it the ways that we can.
No doubt about it, man. I always think about when I see movies, like any type of stealing movie, right? Like Ocean's 11 or whatever, and how easy it is from the hack systems. Like that cannot be true. Like this is this has the things that you guys are probably going through to make sure that none of this stuff gets compromised is pretty darn intense.
The challenge is a lot of enterprise IT organizations, they want to go, I'd say, piece together a bunch of vendors to build these kind of bespoke architectures. And that's why, like, the platform that we created called Fleet Command, like we said, okay, the more you can vertically integrate the entire stack all the way up to the cloud service, and the fact that we're operating it, we can then have our security teams do the penetration testing on the full stack, have kind of alerting on the security health of the entire architecture, and then provide that as a unified dashboard back to IT teams, just so that they don't have to build these intelligence, community level apparatuses around security themselves. They can kind of harness and take advantage of kind of the teams that are being built at companies like NVIDIA, or clouds, right, for going and deploying the infrastructure and getting the benefit of their security teams.
Well, listen, this has been an enlightening conversation, because prior to us getting this interview on the docket, like you said, I thought of NVIDIA as a gaming company. I thought it made chips, components, and possibly hardware, but it's a software company. It's a services company. It's very multifaceted, and you've kind of hinted at that you guys build the component, services, software, and products and hardware around not only the core AI, but also the security around it. I mean, it's pretty darn cool.
Hey, thanks for watching. This segment is brought to us by Salesforce Platform. Visit salesforce.com/newsletter to discover timely insights and useful tips tailored to your role. Subscribe to the channel and get more great IT and tech interviews with top industry leaders.